Okay, I think we're live. We're live on YouTube and Twitter. So, bienvenidos todos a Noches de Café. Aquí tenemos otro nuevo episodio más, otro live episode, ¿no? Hoy tenemos la dicha de tener a Nelson. Y déjales introduzco primero a mi hermana. Tati, ¿cómo estás? It's Friday.
Hola. Happy Friday. Hola a todos. Hope you're all doing well. Getting ready for the weekend. Hola, Nelson.
Hola, Tatiana.
Nelson, ¿cómo estás? Thank you again for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me to have a chance to be on y'all's podcast. I've heard a lot of good things, and it's something that I'm excited for. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, de hecho, tú fuiste uno de los que invité primero, way before I even had a lineup of guests.
Mm-hmm.
And just to tell you a little bit, ¿no? Mientras que se conectan gente, ¿no? I was a little bit nervous to start off again. I was like, okay, I already did it once. Como que no pegó, no me sentí bien. Y I was like, ¿lo haré? No lo haré. Mucha gente me decía, sí, hazlo. No. Insecurity siempre pasa.
Sí.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. Voy a mensajear a ciertas personas. If I can secure them as guests, lo lanzo, ¿no? And I did exactly that, without even having the picture. I mean, the profile, the mic, the laptop, a camera, light, anything that you need to do a podcast without having anything in that. I said, okay, if I get 4 guests, I'll launch it. And 4 guests, that have interests that align with our values or to share knowledge. Y los junté, and I was like, okay. Entonces, tú fuiste uno de ellos. Entonces, it was like, it's incredible now to, nos vimos el sábado pasado. Gracias a Dios tenemos todo el mes de mayo lined up. Entonces, yeah. Entonces, I invited my sister. Ya mi sister puede decir cómo la invité y todo el rollo, ¿no?
Yeah, so me invitó o me invité yo sola. I'd like to think porque él me dijo la idea y él me lo dijo más so that I can help him, kind of like with the behind the scenes work, creating flyers, editing videos, all that stuff. Pero cuando me dijo, oh, ya tengo estos invitados, and I was like, oh my God, I want to join. I want to be a part of todo lo que estás haciendo. And he was like, pero si le entras al 100, And I was like, oh man, that's a big commitment.
Mm-hmm.
Pero sí, me aventé, and I felt right about it because I know how passionate he is. So here I am.
His energy can be contagious. This is the way you make that, right?
Yeah, so vamos a empezar. Nelson, hace 2 semanas, me and my sister, we had a conversation, de siblings, como siendo hermanos, the same parents, but we see things differently. So I want to ask you to start off, tienes un hermano y una hermana, right?
Sí.
How was that? 3 hermanos, ¿cómo se llevan? How's that chemistry? Y cómo fueron creciendo, ¿no?
No, sí, it's always interesting seeing how you and 2 other people, right, your siblings, can grow up under like the same roof, same parents, same rules at home, and yet y'all couldn't be more different, right? At least that's the way I see it for me and my brother, who he is 2.5 years younger than me. I'm 28, so he is 26. He's 26 right now. Let me see if I'm doing my math right. Yeah, he's 26. And my sister, she's the youngest. She's about to turn 21 on Cinco de Mayo. And she kind of has a little bit of both of our personalities, my brother and me. But yeah, me and my brother growing up, I was always the super calm one, always focused on school. And it might be because I was raised that way since I was the youngest. So my dad had a lot of expectations for me growing up. So I was like, llegando a la casa, like first thing you got to do is do your homework. Let me see what you've been doing at school. everything better be 100 or an A. So I was always stressed out as a kid. My brother, they tried doing the same with him, but everyone learns differently. We're all different, right? Especially in certain subjects one can be better at than others. And so there was that difference with me and my brother where he struggled a little bit more with school in elementary and stuff like that. And then after a while, they kind of like eased up a little bit on him. Never on me. I remained the same way. Like going into college, I'm like already 18, and my dad's trying to tell me what classes to take. I'm like, come on, but yeah, it was very stressful. But me and my brother obviously had certain things that we would relate to, that we would be very similar at. Like we both loved soccer growing up. So we both played that. We bonded through soccer. Music, music's an interesting subject because you just kind of listen to it as a kid on the radio, but once you're older, and at the time, technology was still fairly new with like downloading music and stuff. So whenever I was like 12, 13, that's when people started burning music on CDs, like LimeWire and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Y'all remember those
yeah.
songs?
Yeah.
The struggle just to have 12, 15 songs in a CD. Yeah, so I remember when at that time, that's when I started getting into music. And so my brother would listen to whatever I would burn onto the CDs. And then he would try to do the same thing as me and burn CDs. And 90% of the songs were the same songs on my CD. So it was like, why are you copying me and this and that? But that was our relationship growing up. And now that we're older, we're closer in terms of like we see things differently, right? As a kid, like we probably fight over everything or we bond over everything. And now that we're older and we're able to understand more of I guess we're more in touch with our feelings and stuff like that, we're able to get along better than when we were as kids. Kids, we'd fight every day. So it's part of growing up.
Yeah, it's my sister can tell you on that. When we were kids, yeah, it was I guess because we're growing up, cada quien tiene su idea, and probably, I don't know, Tati, lo que dijo Nelson, ¿no? Que a él le cargaban toda la presión, tenía toda la presión, even if, you probably felt that, and en este caso, I'm older than my sister. Entonces,
Okay.
Le ponían la presión a ella y a mí no.
Why is that?
I guess, Tati?
Maybe, well, I look back and I didn't feel the pressure. Yo sentía que se lo ponían a él. So,
interesting.
Yeah, at least con la
Why?
escuela, yo sentía, well, with school, at least with school, and I don't know if it's because I loved school. A mí me encantaba aprender, me encantaba leer, todo eso. Till this day, I still do. So I think por eso maybe I didn't feel it. No lo sentí como presión. So maybe that's why I felt like with him, maybe he didn't like school so much. So when they would talk to him, yo sentía como si lo estuvieran presionando. And maybe that wasn't the case. But I just didn't feel it on my end porque a mí me encantaba.
Now, Nelson, and also in one of those, in that conversation, we were reflecting on how we see sometimes siblings that they don't really have a connection or they don't really get along. In your case, it was like you guys, obviously, igual que me and my sister, we didn't get along at the beginning, but now it's like now there's a connection, right?
Yeah.
But we also question the fact that how either it could be a blessing or not to be a single child. Do you think if you were a single child, how do you think that would have been an only child?
That's a really great question because I was super shy growing up. Like as a kid, extremely shy. I would mostly like be friends with like my brother because I would see him all the time, and my cousins who would play around with all the time, like every other weekend, right? But in school, I was super shy. I had a couple of, it's as a kid, y'all just are all doing the same assignments, y'all have recess and all that, but I don't remember as a kid like having a ton of friends. So if I would have been an only child, I would have probably lacked like the communication, right? Like that I had from like my brother, my cousins, and all that, I feel like I would have been even more shy. And I feel like that could have probably impacted me a lot more because I didn't really start coming out of my shell until like after I graduated out of high school. I became involved with like church and more activities. In high school and junior high, I mostly was like just involved with soccer, so it was only like my soccer friends. But like in the classroom and like and stuff like that, I was a lot more shy. So I don't know. I think that's an interesting question. I feel like in terms of also like of pressure, I can only imagine
Way
if I was
more.
already stressed out with the, and I
Way
could
more.
share the stress with my brother and my sister. If it was
All
all
eyes
on
on you.
I can't even imagine, man. That I think would have been awful, to be honest with you. But
Pero
I mean, every household's different.
Yeah, tú sentiste la presión en todo aparte de la escuela, right?
Yeah, it was not just. It was like obviously like since I was the oldest, I had to be the most behaved. I had to be the most engaging. Like they wanted me like to be super social. They wanted me to
be the example,
set the example.
There you go.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it was like you have to do like what your brother, right? Like they would compare my grades to them. They would. It was always like I felt like I had to set the bar really, really high. You know what I mean? And yeah, I feel like that impacted me my whole life, and you know, and it still does. Like I have high expectations for myself, and I just want to keep setting the example.
I think that's common too. I think my brother and I, we've talked about that. Y es un daño que sin querer queriendo los padres hacen.
Yeah.
Que they don't realize that when you say, why can't you be more like your brother? Hey, your brother did this or your sister did this. Why can't you do that? Y lo hacen, of course, naturally it comes out maybe because their parents told them that, pero no entienden que eso a largo plazo, like when your kids get older, they're going to feel that and they're going to turn into perfectionists, or they're not, they're going to give up easily and they're going to remember that. So like you said, que te afecta because you notice your behavior now, but what are ways that you catch yourself and then you're like, oh, okay, let me not do that.
Yeah.
That you would recommend to other people that have gone through that too.
That's a good thing to think about.
But...
Yeah. No, but I actually want to ask you, like, do you feel like that impacted you? Like, did that play a part in y'all's household? Like, where like they said like, oh, you have to be like Luis, like, and this and that. Like, did that affect you, or did that happen at all?
I think that's for my brother. Yeah.
Yeah. So they would tell me, and we're only 1 year apart, or Tati has
a count. A year and a half.
A year and a half. She has that perfectly count. I really don't care. Yeah, they would tell me. I remember my mom and my dad. They would tell me, "You're the role model. She's after you. She looks up to you." And I'm like, but she doesn't have to look up to me. Like we're the same. Like
yeah,
like we're growing up with the same parents, the same grandparents. Like we should be the same. Like
life. Yeah,
I'm not a hero. I'm not this superhuman that she needs to look up to me. You know, it's just like if she does something good, then I'm gonna be like, hey, Tati, how did you do this? Let me try to copy you. But I don't know. I guess it's just parents, you know, from back in the day. That's how they were brought up. And but I mean, like you said, you know, now the good thing is that we get over it. We can assimilate it, and we can do good things now, no? Now with our siblings and everything.
Sí.
Yo tengo pregunta para los dos because you're both the older sibling, right? And then the age gap between you and your younger sibling is roughly like between a year and 2 years, right? So yo quiero hacer esta pregunta because I have two little boys, and they're a year and a month apart. And para no volver a cometer eso de comparing the two, like, ¿qué consejo would you tell me, like, besides the obvious of stating, okay, hey, don't be like this, but what are other little behaviors or things that your parents would say that you would tell me, hey, try to avoid that with your kid?
All I can think about is on your oldest child, definitely go easy on them. But in not just in terms of like having an older one and a younger one, but I think just in general, like being able to understand that not every kid is going to be good or like have like 100 or an A or be like super perfect in certain things. Sometimes it just takes time for them to really kind of develop whatever skill or really kind of understanding how to do a certain thing, having patience with them, and just kind of taking them for who they are, right? Like my dad, the way he raised me was like he just accepted this idea that I had to be the best in everything. And that's just not realistic, right? So just if for whatever case one of your kids is just not really good at math, they're probably, they're just not really good at math, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, like there's tutoring and stuff, like there's certain way you can go about it. But one thing that I can recall was my brother struggled with the alphabet growing up. So he would be sat in the dinner table for like 4 hours, and it was like back to back, like, what letter is this? And he'd be crying, I don't know, como que no sabe. It was just, it was very stressful, right? And it's okay. It takes time for a certain kid to develop certain skills. So just having patience, I think, is like what I would recommend. Just having patience and being okay with them not being really good at something. It just takes time, or it's just not their thing.
No, I appreciate that.
I agree the same thing with Nelson, and that reminds me of, I had a coach, my first coach in soccer, where he had his son in his team, and he was hard. He was a hard coach, very disciplined. You didn't do something, go run 10 laps, go run 5 laps, so you can understand that you got to do it right first or second time. But that's it. But he was harder on us, but he was even harder on his son.
Mhm.
And I had him on the past podcast, and he told me, I had to be hard on him because he's my son, and I wanted him to be the best. I couldn't be hard on you guys because you guys weren't my family.
Mhm.
But casi la mayoría se arrepienten de ser tan duros, because they're like, at the end, they're like, como que hay un distanciamiento, ¿no? A veces puede verlo, ¿no?
Yeah.
O sea, creo que hay ¿cómo se dice? Hay un límite, ¿no? De ser duro, pero explicarle, ¿no? Hey, I want you to be better than me because yo llegué hasta aquí y tú tienes que llegar más arriba que yo, ¿no? En vez de ser duro, duro, duro y no explicarle, pues your son is like, damn, why is he pressuring me so much, ¿no? Entonces, creo que está en la comunicación, ¿no? And I think que eso nos lleva a one of our first topics, ¿no? Que es lo que hablamos de Mexican American culture, ¿no? ¿Qué pasa con nuestros papás, no? Que no hablan mucho. Por ejemplo, para empezar, ¿no? El papá de mi hermana y yo no habla mucho, and it's like, are you okay? ¿Qué tenemos que hacer, no? Talk to us, like ya estamos grandes, ya podemos entender lo que nos tengas que decir, not like before, ¿no?
Mhm.
Entonces, what do you think que pasa allí?
Well, definitely, like me thinking of like growing up, the 90% of the stuff we would talk about was always school, like always school. And I would get, getting older, like my final years in high school, I'm like, why does that always have to be the only thing we talk about? Like, why is it
Yes.
always my grades? Why is it like only that? Or college applications? Have you done scholarships? Those are the three things. Like, what are your grades? What scholarship did you do today? Because you can just do them in an hour, right? Or in one day. Sometimes it's a process. What colleges have you applied to? Those three things were always like 99% of the time the topic whenever my dad got home, like especially my senior year in high school. So then now that I'm older, granted, we don't see each other like as often because I work and he works, and by the time I get home, it's already midnight because I work late hours. So then the only times I really see him is like on the weekends, and it's just he doesn't really talk much either. Like maybe he's like a little bit like y'all's dad. I'm sure but I feel like that's why it's important, like growing up, to really be invested, not just in your kids' education, which is important, but like also in their, their personal lives as well. Like I can't tell you how many times I had to repeat to my dad who my friend Brian was or who my friend Nick was. Like, just because he wouldn't ask, I would just say the name and then I'll say the name a month later. It's like, who is that again? I'm like, Dad, I told you, like, we hang out this and that. We're friends because we have eighth period together. Like, stuff like that. You know what I mean? So I feel like, parents, like how you said, just back then were probably just, that's the way they were raised. But I feel like taking an interest in your kids' personal lives is very, very important. That way, whenever y'all get older, hey, you have something to talk about, But
Mejor que, how's the weather? No, sí hace frío, no? Those conversations that are really pointless, no?
exactly, just ask Alexa or Siri; they'll give you the answer to that.
Yeah, that's small talk you can do with anyone else outside of the house, pero en la casa es que se tiene que hacer esas preguntas, porque si no, you don't even know your kid. No conoce su color favorito, no conoce el nombre de su best friend, you don't know what his allergies are, things like that. Which allergies, obviously, it's a life or death situation. Pero las otras cosas, you can't just minimize it. Like you said, you have to be invested, porque eso a largo plazo, I honestly, from personal experience, I feel like eso sí afecta, and it helps you if they were invested while you were, growing up. Because then you do the same with your kids, and then you know how to hold a conversation. You're able to be more social, and then you know what to look for. You're not as naive. At least that's what I think.
Which, and I think we go into an extreme, which is, I think, more in the Hispanic community, we go into that extreme where we have the dad that doesn't talk, that talks whenever he feels that it's necessary to put pressure. But then we have the mom that she can probably be a little bit overprotective. Entonces vamos ahora con la mamá, ¿no? ¿Qué pasa con la mamá, no? ¿Por qué protege de más, no? Which is also not a really good thing. What are your thoughts on that?
I was a mama's kid. I'm a mama's boy all the way. Like, that's she was just she was just the easy one to talk to, right? Like, if it was stuff about like girlfriends or like fighting with this friend or whatever, like, who would I go to? My mom. Because that's why it's important, like, to dads, like, be invested in your kids' lives, because like I said, 90% of my conversations were about grades and stuff like that. And if he wasn't happy with those grades, it'd be fighting, yelling, and I don't want to deal, with that all the time. So, like, why would I go to my dad? So he just didn't make it easy on himself now, or like then, and even, for me, because it's like, my dad, all I associated him with is like my education, and I'll get in trouble if I'm not up to par with his expectations. So then that was like our conversation. So then with my mom, and she saw a lot of that too, and so she wouldn't want to bring up those topics because she knew my dad took care of it. Why is she gonna do that? Like, now I have to deal with both of them? No. So with my mom, I could actually talk about stuff like my feelings and thoughts, right? And I feel like that's something that in a lot of like Mexican American households, like back then or even now, that's something that just did, at least in my household, didn't happen. Talking about my feelings, my dad, like, how do you feel about that? If he were to have brought that up, and like, while I was in high school, and that was the first thing that came out of his mouth, which never was the number one thing that ever came out of his mouth when he got from work. If he would have said something like that, I would have been like, who are you? Like, this is, why are you asking me? What, like, what, am I in trouble? You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, that would have never happened. And I feel it's not healthy for us to not to talk about our feelings or just communicating in general. The one thing that I always joke with like my girlfriend or my
Oh, the sound. I think you're muted, Nelson. Can you hear us? And it sounds so interesting what he's saying too.
Está todo apasionado y no podemos escuchar.
I don't think he he can hear us. Nelson.
No. Mira.
Someone who knows how to read lips. We're gonna need your services. ¿Nos escuchas?
Let me see.
No. A ver.
There?
Can you hear us?
No?
No. I can't hear you.
Can you hear us? No.
No, he can't hear us. Oh no. No. ¿Ahora nos escuchas?
Se nos fue el audio. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello. Hello?
Hello.
No.
Oh, we're getting
Ok, se nos fue el audio, pero
really good
está viendo
conversation.
todo.
Woo.
It's probably me and you, entonces no pasa. Y ahorita tendrá que repetir todo lo que dijo.
He was so passionate. I'm sure he remembers. Si no, we'll have someone who can read lips translate.
¿Verdad? ¿Alguien de la audiencia que... Can you hear us?
¿Me escuchan?
Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
Perfect.
Man,
Oh, you
and
look so
my sister, me and my sister were like, it sounds passionate what you're saying.
I know, right?
And-
Whenever I was like,
You were using your hands and everything. I was like, oh, that's how
wait,
you
so
know
y'all
it was
didn't hear
good.
any of that?
Nothing, bro. Nothing. When you
Oh,
started,
no.
nothing, bro. Repite
Oh,
todo.
I just saw y'all like nodding. I'm like, okay, they feel me. They feel. I was like speaking from my soul, man. Oh, no.
Don't worry, we'll ask someone who knows how to read lips. Se nos puede.
Bro, alguien de la audiencia knows how to read lips.
Oh
No
man,
diga.
just like transcribe it and put the captions. No,
Bro.
God, what was the last thing y'all heard?
Oh,
Man,
oh, the last thing that I heard era cuando dijiste de tu dad, that if he would have said about his feelings, you'd be like,
oh
okay,
yes.
who,
Mhm.
Yeah,
who
yeah,
are
yeah, yeah.
you?
Yeah, so that would have never happened, right? So
Yeah.
growing up, communication was just not a thing. So like what I was saying, I hate that none of that was captured.
You were so into it.
The one thing was growing up, I could never ask a question. Like if everyone would start getting ready at home to go somewhere, I'd be like, where are we going? Oh, a la casa de tu tía. And if I were to ask another question, like, for what? Like, ¿qué está pasando? Ya para de preguntar cosas, además, alístate y ya vámonos. So it was like,
Yeah.
bro, like,
No.
¿por qué no puedo preguntar nada? Like,
Bro.
every single time. And even to this day, why you ask so many questions? What do you mean? There's nothing wrong with asking a question. So like that already immediately like affected me of like, okay, I'm not allowed to talk. Like I can't ask anything. So then I would say less.
Mejor no hablo.
Growing up. And then
Yes.
my dad already doesn't talk to me, like would talk to us a lot about feelings and stuff. So that's another thing I couldn't talk about. So like growing up, it's always like the one thing that I look back on, the theme is like communication. Like if there was one thing I wish we could all improve on at home, it would have been communication. And I don't know what's so wrong. Maybe it's like, you know, back then it's like you're only allowed to talk whenever you're being spoken to or something like that. I don't know if that's what they grew up with, and then they tried implementing that too. But at the same time, they want me to, like, my dad would be so hard on me because he wanted me to be better. But it's like, how can I be better if I can't even, like, with the most basic, like, let me just talk. Like, let's talk. And that just didn't happen.
Like, explícame por qué, ¿no? O sea, explícame, ¿no? Comunícame por qué,
Sí.
qué te pasó a ti. Talk to me, ¿no? Motívame,
¿En
¿no?
qué me va a ayudar?
Para que yo
Yeah.
entienda.
Yeah,
Exacto.
exactly. To understand. If you don't ask, you're not going to get answers to something that perhaps you're not understanding. And that's just the way things work in my household. It's just like everyone's always on a different page. And that's why I'm like, well, that's why I'm asking. So we can all be in sync and be on the same page. But that, no one
But-
communicates around here.
We-
I'm the
we-
last one to know about anything ever that happens in the house.
The same thing with me. The same thing with me.
Ay,
But with what you said, it's a perfect example. And I told my sister and my mother, and my grandmother, this. You know, I told them the story of. There's a story in one of the books that I read where the story goes. I'm gonna try to paraphrase it as much as I can, because to make it short, a little girl goes to her mom and says, "Hey, you know, I'm hungry. Can you make me unos huevos?" And the mom goes, "Yeah, of course." So she takes out un sartén, and the mom was hungry too, so iba a hacer dos huevos. So obviously now puedes hacer dos huevos, tres huevos, cuatro huevos, ¿no? At the same time, ¿no? En el mismo sartén. But the mom estaba haciendo un huevo a la vez en el sartén.
In a big sartén.
And in a big sartén. And the little girl is like, "Hey, why are you doing one egg at a time when you can easily fit two in there?" And the mom goes, "I don't know. Your grandmother taught me that way, and that's how I'm doing it. Go ask your grandmother." The girl goes and asks her grandmother. The grandmother is also doing va a hacer dos huevos, y también está haciendo un huevo a la vez. Y le pregunta a la niña otra vez, "Grandma, ¿por qué haces dos huevos a la vez?" No sé, así me enseñó tu tatarabuela, right? This would be tatarabuela, right?
Bisabuelo.
And she said, "Go ask your tatarabuela." Luckily, the tatarabuela was still alive. The little girl goes and asks the tatarabuela, and the little girl goes, "Tatarabuela, ¿por qué my mom, my grandmother hacen un huevo a la vez?" So the tatarabuela goes, "Ay, qué mujeres tan pendejas. En mis tiempos solo había un huevo en el sartén porque el sartén era chiquito. Ahora los sartenes son grandes." So you see what happens? It goes back to not asking questions and just doing what they got told.
What they taught you.
And it's like, nothing's wrong with questions. And that happened to me, like, I would say a year or 2 years ago with my grandmother. My grandmother knows how to cook, and she's a phenomenal cook. And I sometimes I go and ask her, "Hey, how do you make this?" You know, she's doing something, and I ask her, "Why are you doing it like this?" "Oh, because this is the way." I'm like, but who told you that?" "Oh, my mom told me that." But why?" "Because it's just the way that you do it, and that's it." So they don't like getting questions. I don't know if they see it like it's like you're not believing them or you're being rude, but I'm like, how are you supposed to learn if you don't ask any questions, right? It's like,
I think they see it as questioning their authority when that's not really the case.
yes.
So they get to the defensive mode because that's how their parents were. At least for me, I think, well, at least for us in our case, I think the way my dad was raised, his parents weren't the most like cariñosos, and they were very quiet, reserved people. And so that, I think that went on to him, and then that's why now, at least me, I feel like I'm not as emotionally intelligent as I'd like to be, and my communication skills are lacking a lot. So in that case, I'm like, I wish, that our communication was better, because now if there's like a disagreement with anyone in the family or friends or whatever the case, or with my partner, it would be easy for me to be like, "Oh, you know what? We practiced this in my household. It was healthy. So I know how to do this. I know how to voice my concern. I know how to not stay quiet if something bothers me." Things like that. And I'm sure you can relate.
Tatiana, as you're saying that, literally, as those things are coming back to me and hitting me like on the spot, like now that I'm older with my partner, because she says that I don't share my feelings that much. And I'm like thinking, whenever I'm like speaking out loud, I'm like, well, at home, anytime, like no one would ever ask me about my feelings. So why would I ever share them? No one ever asked me to. So, and as I would say it out loud, I'm like, oh my God, a lot of this makes sense now that I'm older. And I'm like, this, like things that you do with your kids, like it's going to affect them later on. And I ask questions with my girlfriend, like about anything, right? And like she doesn't get mad at me, and I'll be like, wow, like this is totally different than me like growing up. Like I was never allowed to ask questions. And she's seen too, where we'll be at like family events, or she'll come over and she sees how no one communicates at home. I'm like, you see, like this is what I'm talking about. Like it's not like I'm not just going crazy, right? She's like, no, yeah, I see it. I'm like, wow. I'm like, yeah, like we just don't talk. No one is ever on the same page. Like, ¿dónde está tu hermana? Pues tú eres la mamá del papá. Like, what do you mean? I don't know. I've been at work all
Exactly.
day. Like, how am I supposed to know? I'll get home. My brother's car's outside, and I'm like, hey, Alexis, and my mom and dad are like, no sé, está aquí? Yes, like I know he's home. I'm asking to see if y'all know. You know what I mean? Like, they just no one communicates. I could talk about this all day. This is a great topic.
It would make, bro. That's, and I think that happens to all of us, because it's like, to this day, I live with my grandparents and my mom, and
Yeah.
to this day, my grandmother, my mom is sometimes not home in the morning because she's out doing errands, and she asked me, "Where's your mom?" And I'm like, "She's my mom. I don't know where she is. Like, I'm not her babysitter. I'm not gonna ask her. I'm not gonna wake up and ask her, hey, where are you? Why are you not here? What are you bringing? What are you doing? Like no, like you're her mom. Why don't you call her or ask her? Like no entiendo. Like, I don't understand if they never got told that communication was key for everything. Like something so simple as like, a ver, mijita, ¿qué sientes? ¿No? ¿Por qué sientes esto? ¿Por qué no estás hoy aquí? ¿Por qué te vas acá? En vez de trying to like assume something or where they're at, why they're not here, like leave the assuming aside. Ask them to call them up, even if it's 5 seconds. Oye, ¿dónde estás? No te vi, quería saber dónde estás. En vez de come and asking me, hey, where's your mom? No, like I just woke up, ¿qué quieres que te diga? ¿Dónde está? No sé.
Yeah. Pero sabes en eso que afecta? So like the assuming, obviously in my case, I think it comes a lot from the not communicating. So you mentioned, Nelson, that with your partner, she noticed like, hey, I communicate and all this and you don't. I feel like that's a good balance, because that's the same case for me. For my partner and I, it was like a huge eye opener for me when I moved out and then we moved in together, because he's big on communication y yo no. And he's like, I don't read minds. Like, I need to know if something's upsetting you so I can correct it. And I'm like, pues sí, ¿verdad? And it makes sense, pero uno no está acostumbrado a eso. So that was a huge, I had to do a complete 180. No sabía. I didn't even know how to begin. And that's where chocábamos al principio, porque yo me quedaba con todo. I felt like, no, I can't speak up. I can't voice anything, because then I'll get scolded or qué sé yo. But I don't know what your take on is. If your girlfriend was raised the same way as you, like how do you feel that would have impacted your communication?
If she was raised the exact same way as me, I think like maybe we would be able to like kind of connect on that and be like, hey, I grew up this certain way. And the way I view things now is like, I don't want to do the same thing. Why would I pass on like the negative stuff or like the stuff that like we're not so good? I want to pass on all the good stuff, right? That I've learned and seen myself, and want to do a 180 on that and actually do certain things that I didn't see my parents do to me growing up, right? So I feel like that would, and that's something that I actually look forward to in my whenever I was looking for a relationship, is like communication is like the most important thing, because if I assume one thing and you assume one thing, we're gonna be right, like thinking completely differently, and it could lead to discussions, arguments, and stuff like that. So I always try to I'm glad that my girlfriend takes the initiative with like over communicating, which is never a bad thing, and that kind of rubs off on me, so I can get better at communicating too, because I just didn't growing up. It was something like I already talked about it, but it was just hard at home. So if my partner would to have been the same, growing up the same way as me, and she didn't. She's an only child. So she yaps too much. No, I'm just kidding. But she so she got to talk all she wants. She got to talk all she wants, right? So that's it's a good balance, like you said, right? Like, hey, and that way I learn from that, and every day I'm continuing to get better at communicating. So it's a good balance that her and I have right now.
Yeah, which is and now now that you guys say, it's a good balance really in everything. To have sometimes you got to be a positive with a negative, and I've read that a bunch of times in books and everything, where those are the in a relationship or wherever it is, that in a job or whatever, it's a perfect combo there. When one person is maybe the most talkative, the most outgoing, and the other person is more quiet, more reserved. That's the perfect balance right there. Because I mean, two people that are outgoing, well, they're gonna try to outdo each other, right? Um, so I think it's that, and then moving on to another subject, right? Because we covered a lot of this subject, and it's a subject that can go on forever, right? Because it
Yeah.
happens to all of us. Um, how do we see? And this is totally way off this topic. How do we see the music industry? Nelson, are you a Bad Bunny fan?
I was a hater in the beginning. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm like, what is this guy saying? He mumbles. I'll
No se
still
le
say,
entiende.
I'll be like, I don't understand this guy. I don't know what the heck he's saying. But his music is very catchy. It is. It's very. It gets the vibe going and all that. So I can't complain with that. But yeah, I'm somewhat of a fan.
Tati?
The same thing happened to me at the beginning. I would make fun, but I like to think that I like all kinds of music. I've listened to all different genres. Y todas, like there's a few songs here and there that I'm like, oh, I can listen to any genre depending on the mood, right? So with Bad Bunny, al principio, it took me a while to discover his music, but yeah, when I did and I would hear him, yo según yo, I was making fun and I would like mimic how he would sing it, and then at the end I would end up singing it. I'm like, I know the words. I'm like, I'm singing it. Am I a fan now? And you see, pues I got hooked into the catchy music. I won't like be like, oh, I have a playlist or anything like that. But if someone's playing music, I'll be like, yeah, I can jam to this. That's my
Now,
take on it.
do you guys feel like, compared to when we were growing up and what we would listen to, the artists that were there, how they handled themselves? Because it goes a little bit outside of the music, also that they're producing, they're making. Do you guys feel like the music industry has changed for worse or for better?
So I would say that I'm not gonna lie. I've had this conversation with my girlfriend multiple times. I'm like, what is with this music? It's so trash nowadays. And I can go on about that and say how movies and TV shows are kind of similar in that aspect. Man, don't even get me started. But I just
Go ahead.
A lot of the stuff, like recently, there was this one song that my girlfriend sent me, and it was so vulgar and explicit, and it was just the lyrics. There was no lyrical depth to it. There was no like hidden or deeper meaning. It was just straight up, do this to me, do that, do this, do that. And it's just like, okay, if we take the lyrics out and we just listen to the beat and the melody and stuff like that, it's very generic. I feel it's very repetitive. I feel like all songs are starting to kind of sound the same. But then it's like, okay, now let's add the lyrics. And it's like, what is this? This is just like very explicit. And it's like, just because I don't know. I feel like a lot of culture in general, and this where it goes into like the movies and the TVs and all that. Yeah. It's just they're just pushing all the same stuff. Like it's very explicit. Like shows like the one that I always think of. God, it was this show that came out a few years ago. I can't think the name right now. Riverdale. Okay. So whenever that came out in like 2016, 2017, it was just a bunch, like they're high schoolers, right? And what are the main show, at least what I remember from like the first and the second season, I couldn't even finish it or even start it because after the first episode, it's just a bunch of high schoolers doing it all the time. They're doing
I was going to exactly say that.
What's that Spanish one? Elite, like they're high school.
Sex all the time.
All the time. And I'm like, bro, growing, like whenever I was in high school, like that was something like maybe like in guy conversations, joke, but like nothing of that like I remember ever happening like with my friends and stuff. And then like once I graduated, I'm like, did this stuff really happen in high school? Like if so, like it just flew right over my head.
Exaggerated. No,
I
they
was just
exaggerated.
they exaggerate it so much, and it's like, and then they have these older actors playing them, and it's like, and then the audience, if you look at who they're targeting, it's like high schoolers and like people in their 13 to like 18. Why would you push that towards them? Like, why are we making this normal? And then same with the music. With the example that I gave you, that song that my girlfriend showed me, it's a bunch of like 12 to 13, 14-year-olds singing this, and it's like you don't even know what that means. And it's like they're trying to make them know what that means or what, like I don't understand why they're pushing it towards that certain kind of audience. And then I just saw this yesterday or the day before. What's her name? She's very I Doja Cat. I can't. Oh man, I could go forever on this girl. But she even, and I'll give her respect for what she said, but I don't respect her. It's that she said, like, what are you parents thinking? And she was very explicit about this. Like, why are you taking effing kids to my concert? Like, I'm obviously for adults only and this and that. But that's what it goes to what I'm saying. It's targeted at that audience, though. Those are the people soaking up and listening to all the Doja Cat songs. What do you think you have? A bunch of 30 and 40-year-olds? Maybe a few, but it's mostly the younger audiences that are listening to that, and they're singing them out loud. And there's a couple of kids that I'm friends with their family, and you know, I'll talk to the kids every now and then, like, hey, so like what music or whatever, and they'll just be like on their TikTok, right? And then they'll be singing these songs. I'm like, and I'll turn, I'm like, how do you even know what, like, how, like, why are you listening to this? You don't even know what that is. And they're saying these things that they have like TikTok brain. I don't know. It's just, it's really bad. And I feel like back then, what artists would I listen to? Like Cheyenne, Enrique Iglesias, or like stuff like that, right? Mana. And if you listen to like old, even like more traditional Mexican music, it can be pretty explicit, right? But it's not just straight up, this is what it is. They put some kind of like metaphor to it, or they'll it in a very romantic kind of way. And it's like, if you really look deep into it, this is what they're saying, right? But they're just completely taking the curtain off and showing you everything, saying everything that's on their mind. And it's like, that's not right. That's not right, because again, it's targeting mostly younger audiences. And why are we making that to be the norm when it's like maybe what in real life 5% of that it's like that with younger people? And I hate it. I hate it so much. So that's what I have
agree.
to.
Do you guys remember that trend, that TikTok? Oh, sorry, I'm on camera. But that TikTok trend, this is probably maybe a few years ago. It was right after COVID or during COVID. Había una canción, no me acuerdo el nombre ni cómo iba, but it was very, very explicit. And it was so explicit that people started doing a challenge of playing the song out loud in front of their parents. And they would film their parents' reaction. Oh, maybe it was
Is it the one with Bad Bunny?
I think it was a Bad Bunny
Es la de Si tu novio no te. Is it that one?
Yeah.
How does it go?
Tan, tan, ta-da. Well, it's
I don't remember
very
the
explicit.
Yeah, I don't remember the trend, but wow.
I think it's the video where he dresses up as a girl. Is that song?
Very, very popular.
That music video where he's like,
very explicit. And I remember seeing those videos, and I was like, no, I could never do that. I wasn't listening to the song. It was catchy, but I could never explicitly like play that in front of my parents to get their reaction. Like, I'd probably get whooped. So I'm like, you're basically getting them so comfortable to be like that around their parents. And I feel like then at that point, that's when your parents have to step in, and be like, hey, if you want to listen to music, it's fine, but just know that the music does affect you in a way, whether you want to believe it or not. But I do think the words, that's why they say to be careful with what you listen to or with what you say. Porque uno cuando escucha música,
what you see,
you sing along to it, right? So if you're singing along and the song is like very negative, then I feel like that's going to impact your life and how you feel, maybe, negatively. So especially with explicit music, it's going to I feel like it's going to put you in that mindset. And that's where the parents at that point, if they're doing it in front of you, it's like as a parent, you have to step in and be like, look, as your parent, I don't think this is right, and then tell them why.
Yeah.
So,
Which, Nelson, what you said it's almost the same thing. What I said last week when me and my sister were having a conversation.
Yeah.
It's perfect. It's in music. It's in movies.
yeah.
It's in our daily lives, even at work, where it's like if it's an agenda to accept really everything that we didn't accept when we were growing up. And it's perfectly how you said,
Normalize it.
I was telling my sister, when we were growing up and we would watch a movie with our parents, there was a sex scene coming up, cover your eyes, they would skip
Always.
it. If there was a bad word, if you try to say it, because we're a kid, you try to imitate it. Oh, what does baboso mean or whatever? They say, hey, don't say that. You're not supposed to say that. Or they would skip it. A music, a song, the same thing. The radio would do the famous beep. No, you remember the beeps, and I don't know if the radio still does that, where they beep it out, the words. I think they probably do,
I
but
think they just
now there's
They
silence
replace
it.
the
Now
word.
there's YouTube. Now there's Spotify. Where right there you're not getting the beeps at all, right?
Yeah.
But before it was the parents. It was the parents saying, hey, don't say bad words. Don't watch the sex scenes. There was those limits and esas precauciones, ¿no? Ahora, since a while back, it's like, vamos a aceptar todo. Vamos a aceptar todo. Lo que es a sex scene, lo que es bad words, lo que es. And I was talking to friends the other day. It's like, name me a movie donde no hay, bueno, we're drinking right now, pero donde no haya cerveza, donde no haya alcohol. En all the movies hay alcohol, hay cerveza, y hasta la vez y dices, se me toca una cervecita. Which is, una cervecita no pasa nada, right? No pasa nada, right? Pero en una movie de ahora no falta sex scene, bad words, violence, alcohol.
Yeah.
Y lo mismo con la música, ¿no? Bad words, y lo peor de todo es que, como dijo mi hermana, ¿no? Es responsabilidad de los parents, pero los parents ya no son de los 80, ya son de los 90. Los parents. Y de los parents de los 90 ya crecieron con esas música, con esa movie. Yo vi el otro día a person en Instagram con sus hijos atrás y estaban doing a reel de uno de estos reggaeton music songs donde decían a bunch of que si tú no me comes, que no sé qué, and the child in the back, but they were smiling at each other while doing it, and I'm like, you realize how you're affecting that kid in the back? You think that he doesn't know what those words mean or what's going on, but he knows. Y se le va a quedar. So it's like if they were in the journey of trying for us to accept really everything and not really put limits. I don't know how you see that, Nelson, but I think that's super horrible.
Yeah, and then like those lyrics, right? These songs have nowadays, they may not know what they mean, but once they're getting older, they'll look up what those words mean. Or at school, they'll have a friend or a classmate tell them what that means, and now they know. But they would have never wanted to know, never would have asked if they never listened or sang those lyrics out loud. Como con el reggaeton back then for me, it was Daddy Yankee, Don Omar, Wisin y Yandel. And if you compare those songs, you listen to them, maybe
they're clean.
Songs,
they're clean.
Compare them to the reggaeton or Latin trap that is now, completely different. Maybe they'll throw one or two words, and back then you'd be like, oh, they said that one word. Ahora, it's like, what word didn't they use? Like, right? It's like they'll have like 50, 60 words that are super explicit. But back then, it would be rare, really, for them to really be cussing or saying something super vulgar. Like when you're comparing them to the songs that they release now, it was reggaeton and Latin trap, whatever you want to call it, like has definitely progressed. But at the same time, it's become way more vulgar and way more explicit than it was back then. Because I grew up on that music. Wisin y Yandel, Rakim y Kenway, Don Omar, Daddy Yankee, and all them. And I can't really recall a certain song if like that where they say something explicit. Like I'm trying to think right now, and I can't think of anything. But if you say Bad Bunny And all the artists
Oh,
that exist nowadays, like, oh, like I can name like song after song after song, and same with rap as well. So
oh yeah.
rap or like these random artists that become famous overnight just because they have a song that goes viral on TikTok. And I wish I knew the name of that one song that my girlfriend told me, because I think it became viral on TikTok and then everyone started singing it, and it's just really, really bad. But that's
But,
how it is
but
nowadays.
but you know, one thing is doing the music, and that's fine. You know, they want to throw out those words. They want to really say everything that those explicit words and everything, sex and
Yeah,
drugs and whatever. That's fine. But target, you know, the adults are 18 and up. You know, the
yep,
adults are really will already know exactly what's going on with those
exactly.
lyrics. But no, and they're doing it intentionally to target younger people.
Hmm.
And the younger people, maybe in USA, probably they're listening to something else. But we know in Mexico, if you go to a kid that's 15 years and younger, they're listening to reggaeton. They're listening to reggaeton. And I know in Mexico, the girls get pregnant at a very young age. Why? And the mom asked, "What? No sé por qué se embarazó. What is she listening to?"
Well, not only that, yo creo también is because of the way uno's raised. I feel like en mi personal, en mi ver, que uno como papá o mamá tiene que también talk to your kids, because yeah, the music and the entertainment, all of that is gonna affect, obviously, right? There's only so much you can block out, and they're gonna see it at school with their friends or whichever. So uno como padre has to step in and talk to them. But I feel like in a Mexican American household, and also you can probably speak on that, it's like a taboo thing when you talk about that subject, when you talk about sex, when you try to educate your kids. That's not a thing in
Oh,
our household. That wasn't a thing. You like the skipping scenes. I get that part.
Yeah.
But talking about it, like when you feel like your kids are at a certain age, it's like saying, "Hey, this is not, you shouldn't do this, or no one should
Mhm.
do this, or you
have
have to respect
protection.
your body." There's none of that, and I don't know if it's because, it's like, "Oh, no, 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 we can't talk about that here." So you have to have a balance, I feel like, because you were either the parent that didn't talk about it, skip the scenes, or you were the parent that let them watch whatever. And either one, I feel like, is bad. Like, you have to have,
Yeah.
like, in between, like, hey, skip them when you're with them, pero también háblales sobre esos temas, porque si no, they're gonna get older and no one talked to them. They had to learn that stuff from music. They had to learn that stuff from movies or from friends, which, where are they learning that stuff from? You don't, get to have a say in that. So no sé tú cómo creciste and what your view is on that.
No, yeah, I completely agree. It's like if the parents who know better, right, who should know better, they're the ones that should be giving the answers and explaining certain things to their kids. Otherwise, just like you said, they're going to be getting it from somewhere else. Who knows how those people grew up? Who knows what ideas or values or morals those people have, right?
Exactly.
So it's always better for for your kids to hear it from you, the parent, than from a friend or someone from school or something like that.
Or a teacher.
Yeah.
What's your take on that? Because I think there was like a dilemma. I think this was last year, where some of the teachers were taking the initiative of teaching the kids, and this was young age. I think it was a controversy because the kids were young. It was elementary school. I think it was
Hmm.
second or third grade, if I believe. And I don't know how you would feel about that.
Yeah.
How old
Like
are
if
they
that was
there? In
your kid.
second, how old are they?
There should be like
Tienen
8 or 9.
8 or
Hmm.
9.
I think that's a little bit too young, no, to introduce that subject.
But even the age, like factor out the age, right? What's your take or your
Okay.
guys' take on the teachers doing that versus the parent,
I
or
think
without parental consent?
at least the way I saw things was like I don't think we really touched those subjects like unless you were in a particular class. Like I remember the summer before freshman year in high school, I took some extra credit classes over the summer. Yeah, I never went to summer school because I was failing or anything. It was because I had to get ahead because of my dad. See, it just the theme keeps
Yeah.
going here.
It keeps
But,
circling back.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I went to get ahead, and so that class you would take in high school, right? Like health, and that's where you would talk about sex, healthy sex, and this and that, all prevention, all those subjects. And that's fine. I think that's fine. Like once you're in high school, right? You're developing into an adult, and obviously it was an elective class, I think, or maybe no, actually no. Back then, I think you had to take like a semester of health. But you could take it at any point in high school. And by then, I think you're a lot older. I think it's healthy to have that conversation at that age. But whenever you're in elementary school and you're a kid, I don't think personally, I don't think teachers should be teaching anything about that because first of all, and if they are, I would like to know as a parent, I would want to know what exactly are they covering, what information, where did they get that information from? Like, how do I know they're teaching my kid, you know, 8, 9 years old, those things? And would I want them to know all that stuff? I don't know. I have to know what they're teaching them, but I would want to
Yeah.
be the one teaching them or like telling them or like informing them like, hey, as you know, a man has this, a girl has that, you know, and stuff like, but it would be super superficial. Like I would barely scrape the conversation because kids are mostly focused about just having fun at that age. They don't really care about, they don't even know what
Like
that
kids be
is.
kids.
Yeah, kids are just being kids. Once they're, you know, developing, you know, going through adolescence and starting to become a young adult, then maybe we can start touching up on those subjects because and maybe it varies from kid to kid, right? Maybe
Yeah.
and depending where you're growing up at, you have to have those conversations at different ages. But if you're relatively in an environment in a household where those subjects like the music, the TV, all that like is very censored and they're not like really introduced or like see or hear those things, then maybe those conversations can happen later, right? Because it's just like, what's the point? How beneficial is it really going to be having that conversation with a 6 or 7 year old who's probably distracted within like 20 seconds, right?
Right.
So I think teaching those subjects at such a young age in elementary by other people that are not the parents, I don't think that should be happening at all. Luis, what do you think?
So yeah, I agree. I think that our parents, and I'm pretty sure we've all heard it in Spanish, especially in the Hispanic culture. Los papás nos dicen, no hay un manual para ser papá. Ya te veré cuando seas papá, ¿no? Y no es que dejar de lado que no hay un manual para ser papá, para vivir la vida, para ser exitoso, para nada. No hay un manual para nada. Simplemente lo haces y haces lo mejor que puedes. Está bien. But what I was trying to get at is that nuestros papás, not in a way of judging them, I'm grateful for the parents that I've got, and everyone should be grateful for the parents that they got. Al final de cuentas nos enseñan algo, and we carry their enseñanzas. Ya después, when we become adults, when we have kids, hay algunas enseñanzas que we carry from them there. But sí hay algunos negative things, ¿no? Por ejemplo, no hablar de sexo, ¿no? O sea, si tú, por ejemplo, ¿cuántas personas que tuvieron hijos that they didn't want to have them hubieran querido esa conversación con su papá? Oye, hijo, mira, ven para acá, esto lo usas protección, esto va aquí, esto va allá. Pero los papás los ven uncomfortable, ¿no? No, a ver, no, es sexo, no, mi hijo no va a tener sexo, o mi hija no va a tener esto, ¿no? Pero no nomás lo vemos con sexo, yo lo veo también con la muerte, ¿no? No sé si ustedes tienen miedo a morir, pero y más en la Hispanic culture, les da miedo platicar de que un día no vamos a estar, ¿no? Y if you bring that up, es como, no hables de eso, no hables de eso, ¿no? Es like, pues algún día no vamos a estar acá, ¿no? Mejor hay que vivir apreciando papá, mamá, abuelo, abuela, sin el miedo, porque I saw, and this was like a while ago. I like to watch anime every now and then. I saw an anime where a girl was dying of her pancreas, and a kid was scared of her. and the girl wanted to be her friend. Pero él tenía miedo a vivir la vida. And because she knew she was dying, she was more willing to live her life. And so she said, hey, me and you are going to be best friends. We're going to go and have a list of doing things, and we're going to do this list together. They would go back and forth at the beginning. Say the kid would tell her that was scared of that. He was like, why are you so freely to do things? Aren't you not scared of what they're going to say, what they're going to do? And I'm like, no, because I know that I'm going to die the day of tomorrow. You know that you're going to die, but it's like you don't want to live. You're not even living. You're scared so much of dying, but you don't even want to live. Or no te atreves a vivir todo lo que quieres hacer because you think que el qué dirá, ¿no? ¿Qué estás haciendo? ¿Qué está haciendo aquel? ¿Por qué hace eso? And so this girl was living exactamente así, ¿no? Yo me voy a morir el día de mañana, no me importa, yo voy a hacer todo lo que yo quiera. Y este niño no. Este niño, según tenía miedo a morir, pero según él estaba viviendo. At the end, obviamente, ella se muere, pero no se muere because she was sick of her pancreas. Se muere porque la mataron. Iba caminando por la calle y la mataron. Entonces, allí es donde él se da cuenta que she was right, ¿no? Que tienes que vivir. O sea, ¿nos vamos a morir? Sí, está bien. Pero no nos vamos a morir mañana, ni pasado mañana. O sea, vamos a vivir hoy, mañana. Decirle a papá, mamá, oye, te quiero, whatever. Entonces, pero por el miedo de no, mi hijo no va a tener sexo, mi hijo no se va a morir, yo voy a morir. O sea, I think el miedo nos mueve muchísimo, ¿no? I don't know what you guys. I took it to another level, extreme, ¿no? Pero I don't know what you guys take on that.
Tatiana?
Pues yo, growing up, that was my fear. Siempre, that was my fear. And that developed anxiety. Heavy. And then I realized anxiety is caused by what? Fear. Es en el no vivir en el momento. Constantly thinking about the future. And then I'm like, oh,
yep.
Everything makes sense. Once I learned that, I was like, oh, that makes sense. And it wasn't until just like, I think during COVID and after COVID, que fue cuando I'm like, damn, I need to be in the present more. And then that helped me with the anxiety, and I think that's a huge thing, because if you don't, like he said, then you're living in fear, you're not living. And then imagínate, and I always tell myself, I'm like, if I just thought like that, where if I just lived today como si fuera mi último día, what would I have done different? And I do that at night. Me pregunto, like, what would I have done different? And it lets me reflect. It's like, oh, I got mad at this, or I lost my patience, with my kids or something. And I'm like, was that how I would have wanted my life to be? And so with that and reflecting it, al día siguiente, entonces lo puedo, I can live it better. So I think it's a really good mindset to do that, because I didn't live like that during my teenage years. No sé tú. I don't know you, Nelson.
Tengo un padrino que me ha dicho muchas veces, lo único que vas a tener por el resto de tu vida es el presente. Nada, es lo único que existe. El pasado no existe, ya pasó. Y el futuro nunca lo vas a ver. Nunca lo vas a ver, porque lo que siempre vas a tener es el presente. And I know there's that Kung Fu Panda song too, like, right, the present, that's why it's a gift or whatever. But it's true. Yeah. You don't experience the past. You don't experience the future. The only thing you will ever have for the rest of your life is the present. Y tengo un tío que he told me always, like, it's better to have oh well than what if. Like, having a what if is like one of the worst things, because I don't know about y'all, but every now and then it would be in the most random times. I'll be driving a car, I'll be eating, and then I'll think of something that happened like whenever I was a teenager or something, and it's like, oh, if I would have only done this, or if I would have said this whenever this happened to me. And I'm like, oh, like, I hate having that what if.
Yeah.
I rather have, oh, well, at least I tried, or at least I did that, right? Even if I messed up or whatever, oh, well, ya no me afecta. But lo que me afecta is knowing, like, what if I had done this? What if I had said that? Yeah.
I agree. And I'm
Yeah,
sure a lot of people
que-
watching can agree too.
but we don't do it because we're like, no, que if I do it, voy a fracasar. Que tengo 38 años, ¿para qué lo hago? La gente va a decir, estás loco, ¿para qué lo haces? O sea, el miedo nos agobia. Mejor digo, no, está bien, así me quedo. Y me quedo con el what if, no. Voy manejando, on my way to work, and I'm like, ¿qué hubiera sido si yo hubiera hecho esto? Then it's like, hombre, hazlo. Si fracasas, pues no te quedas con ese intento, ¿no? No te quedas con esa pregunta. Lo hiciste y te quedas todavía más satisfecho because it's like, you did it. It's like, man, I did it. I did it. No, no resultó, but I did it. I did it. Y todavía eso es un intento de éxito, que el éxito es para cada quien diferente, ¿no? Para cada quien es diferente. So with this was another topic, phenomenal topic. Let's move on to our another topic, which is also I like this topic a lot because now I've been getting into it more. Having faith. I know I've been getting into this. I've been, reading the Bible, reading, and so I would ask Nelson, what is having faith?
Yep.
¿Cómo la sientes? O sea, es algo que no se ve, pero ¿cómo la sientes? ¿No? ¿Y cómo te ayuda para tener ese éxito o para sentirte en paz? ¿No?
Es una pregunta muy profunda, amigo. Muy very philosophical también.
Speak to that.
Yep.
Man, so growing up, I don't know if y'all can relate, but I was one of those kids where it's like, why are we going to church? And you would just go because you're just going. The communication, again, with the communication.
Yeah.
No one ever explained why. That's the theme, bro. I'm telling you, like, no one explained why. It was just like, you have to, because I'm the parent, tienes que hacer lo que digo. Vamos. So that's what I grew up on. Then I remember there's a few years that I stopped going to church for whatever reason. And then I started going back to church. But I never remember anything really from church. Like whenever the priest was talking or having their homily and all that, it would just kind of go over my head, right? I was just focused on like, it's so early on Sunday. I just want to go home. I just want to eat. I'm hungry, this and that. So nothing ever stuck with me. But then as I got older, I actually had a friend. She was a different religion than what I grew up with. But she kind of like planted the little seeds in me about like faith and like what is faith and this and that. So then at this point I was older already. I was like 18 years old. And then, so I grew up Catholic and I had to do my confirmation. I hadn't done it yet. And I was like 18 or 19. So then there are certain things you have to do in our Catholic church to do your confirmation. You have to attend like certain classes at church. And then you have to go on this retreat. So on this retreat, we went to Louisiana. It was like, so at least from what I know in the Catholic religion, whenever you do your confirmation, I guess like the normal age to do it is like whenever you're a junior in high school. Because I remember I was in calculus as a senior, and there was a couple of advanced kids in there that were juniors, and they were all talking about how they went to go do their confirmation. So I'm like 18 or 19, and we go to Louisiana. And at this point, I've already kind of learned a little bit going to the classes. And I actually went to the University of St. Thomas, which is a private Catholic university in Houston. So part of their curriculum is you have to take 3 semesters of philosophy and then 3 semesters of theology. So I had at this point taken like my introduction to philosophy. I took my first class of theology. I'm starting to learn, right? And I'm asking a lot of questions at this time as well at church and in the classes because I'm learning them at the university. So I go to this retreat, and there's this there's this thing in the Catholic religion called adoration, where they have the body of Christ, which is, what people say, like the bread, right? And it's already been blessed by the priest, and they have it in a cross. And during this part, they had a band on stage, and they're just playing very relaxing, music, so you can get in tune with what's going on. And during this time, it's like deep prayer. You are on your knees, you're praying, you're asking God, you're communicating with him. and I had never done adoration before. It was something very powerful to me. And my priest had told us, hey, y'all are going to encounter some very strange things when you go to this retreat, right? Especially during adoration. And people that had gone before, they went on this retreat as well. And they said, yeah, sometimes people cry, people scream, everyone reacts differently to it. Yeah, it's a very powerful. So I'm like, I'm someone though that's very I ask a lot of questions, right? Because I didn't
Skeptical.
get to ask questions growing up. So I'm like, okay, like this, like, why would someone just burst out crying? I'm like, that's a little weird to me. So I went through it during adoration. I'm praying, and one of my friends, she starts crying like really loudly. She's very emotional. I'm like, wow. But I kind of like block that out, and I'm like trying to focus on myself because at this time I'm like I have a lot of questions, and I'm learning about my faith as well. And during this prayer, I I started thinking or talking to God in my own way of like, why did certain things happen growing up? Like, who am I really? Like, what am I working towards? Who are you? All of these questions. And I didn't have an episode like that where I'm like shouting, screaming, and all super like that. But there was this moment where I truly felt like God touched my heart, and everything kind of finally like opened up. Um, in terms of like understanding who he is. I'm not saying I understand him completely, right? But like I have a pretty good idea of like who God is and what he's asking of me, his what purpose I have, the idea of God and like him existing and having been, a real person as Jesus and all that. And then what I'm learning at university, it kind of just all clicked to me, and I'm like, I think it makes sense. So then after that, I say my life did a total 180. It wasn't like I go to church and it just goes over my head. It's like I understand what y'all are talking about. Like I'm more into it. And maybe it's a maturity thing. I'm not sure, right? Like compared to being 13 and now being 19 years old and understanding certain concepts. But that's when I really started getting in touch with my faith and wanting to go to church and wanting to know more of who he is and seeing what plan he has in my life or how he can utilize me for his bigger plan on just Catholicism and just religion and just being a good person in general, right? And it's like you could be a good person for many reasons just because everyone else is doing it. Okay, that's a very in my head, I feel like that's very shallow. It's not very depthful. It's like there has to be more than that, right? There has to be way more.
Yeah.
And it's like look, at the end of the day, the principle is just like love, right? For everyone, everything, and just deep rooted love. So then after that, my life just completely changed. Like I said, I went to church a lot more. I started seeing my own life in a different way too. It's like we're all here for just such a limited amount of time, and I think we should just make the most of it. To just and there's a quote by Mother Teresa. I think it says, don't leave or like yeah don't leave without making everyone feel better or like without loving people more. I forgot exactly, I'm like butchering the crap out of that quote, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
yeah like I forgot how it goes. Maybe you can search it up, please. But like
Someone put it in the comments.
yeah, someone say it in the comments. Leave not without like leaving an impact on people's lives, right? And in a positive way, making them feel more special, making them feel more heard or loved. And that's just something like the way you would want to be treated by anyone that you communicate or come across with in your life. So faith to me is just really about just doing the right thing. Um, because you don't know what people are going through on a day-to-day basis. I believe that each one of us are carrying our own cross that people are not aware about, that maybe you don't even tell other people about. Everyone's struggling in their own way. Life is pain, which is like the theme of like Buddhism. Like life is like literally pain. But yeah, like faith to me is just being a good person and trying to leave this world a little bit better than whenever you came into it.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's really playing your part as you show you feel like it's just your life. You feel like you're just living your life and you know, you can have your faith, you can try to spread it, but you're really
Mhm.
there, you know, as a whole picture, really seeing that. I mean, I started really reading the Bible
Yeah.
3 months ago. Really started really getting into it. Really, there's a phenomenal story I just read a couple days ago.
Mhm.
I'll share it with you. But I want to ask my sister, you know, how does she see his faith? Because I know I don't think she's read the Bible really or gotten close to it, but I know she's some words near really being a believer of having good faith. So I want to know her output on that.
Yeah, because I'd like to think that I do a very si se dice faithful person, like that I have faith, very hopeful person. I like to see everything in a positive light. And I know I also we grew up Catholic church, and I don't go to church now, but I do at least try to start my days grateful, and then at night también be grateful, because that's something that I wasn't doing before. And now that I do it, it's a different impact on my life. Like how you said, Nelson, que it shifted how, you know, your view. And then in turn, when you shift your view on how you see everything, you act differently in a better way, at least for me. Yo tal vez no he leído la Biblia, but I do watch like videos of people who explain it to me in a better way. So like he visto, por ejemplo, they now have I think it's a Gen Z Bible that I was like a little bit intrigued, because I'm like, maybe that would get like our youth, you know, more into it. Because I know, like, at least for me, I'm not Gen Z, I'm a millennial, but maybe that's what kind of like um ¿cómo se dice? Like that's why I haven't gone to the Bible and like read it, because I feel like I've at least learned that through experience, through life, through other people, the relationships I build with friends, family, or colleagues. I feel like
Mhm.
I learned that through there. But as far as the Bible goes, I think the Gen Z Bible is on the. Maybe I was like, maybe that will get me more into it, but I don't think, a mi ver, I don't think that reading it will change my view. But porque I would have to understand it. And I think if I read the old one, no le entendería. Y I'm glad that they're doing this. Yeah, maybe some people might feel like it's disrespectful that they're doing it in like the like slang kind of Gen Z slang. But a la vez, I feel like it's good porque así uno lo puede entender. And I see it more like a moral book. Like I know you mentioned that word moral, like, y yo siento que eso es lo que nos va a ayudar. You know, everyone's diferente religión, pero yo siento que teniendo esa fe and being good, not just because everyone else is doing it, but because you feel it.
Luis, I think you and I might be thinking the same, maybe, but you made a very
Go
good
ahead. Go ahead.
point. Like you said, like no tienes tantas ganas to like read like I guess the original Bible, or maybe you were kind of touching upon that, or like you want something that's a little bit easier for you to connect with it, like the Gen Z Bible, right? Growing up, and this goes to like what I said, like it was boring. It was just boring to me growing up. It's like, why would I want to go sit for an hour still listening to something that I don't understand? It
Yeah.
and I will say this: a lot of preachers or priests are not good at really reaching their
Spreading the
audience, right?
word.
Or
You may have the
conveying the
the like
message.
if
Yeah.
you are adorned as like as a priest and whatever, right? You go through the schools and all that, and you are officially a priest. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to be a good communicator, right? It's like you could go through the education system and graduate, boom, you are officially licensed to be a teacher. But are you really going to be able to teach? You know what I'm saying? Like you may have the
Able to
background, but
communicate.
exactly. And growing up, I don't, these were old 60 set. That's what I feel like a lot of people think. You go to church, it's some 60 to 70-year-old man that's
You know,
telling
conexión.
this or that. It's like boring. And they talk slow and this and that. No. So then whenever I started getting into my faith, luckily the priest that I had was like, he was like early 50s, but he was Hispanic, hablaba español, and he was very funny. And so he got my attention. He would be joking every now and then, making jokes, and that was getting my attention, right?
There's
I
the
could relate
connection.
to what he's saying. So I feel like that's something that for, you know, whatever faith you are, at least for speaking on my end, if you're in the Catholic religion, I feel like whenever they accept these students that are wanting to be priests, that they, obviously they do a bunch of background checks, but it's like, would they be able to actually communicate with the, with the church, the people at mass? Because if you don't connect with them, it's just gonna go over their heads like the way it did to me for a long time. So I feel like that's very important, and because it could we could flip the switch too. It could be some denominational church or different thing, right? And I'm not saying that like, well, I kind of do believe that there are certain
Go ahead,
like,
bro. Go ahead.
oh, okay. So I feel like there are
Go ahead,
certain
bro.
religions that are not as legit. Obviously, you're free to believe whatever you want. That's great, but that's also kind of dangerous too. Like believing anything, like it's like, okay, well, where's the boundary? I mean, you're free to believe whatever you want, but then there are like certain organizations that I feel are mostly after money and not so much the religion or the faith, right? So for someone that like is kind of still trying to figure out their faith and this and that, are you going to listen to the 67-year-old priest that is legit and this and that, but he's just a terrible talker? You can't relate to him. But then here comes this maybe youthful 30-year-old that like is a really good speaker. He's able to empathize with your feelings. Maybe they even have a great band at church, at mass, right? They play youthful music. It's like, wow, I like this experience a lot more. I'm gonna go to this one. But it's like, what's really there? They're a great speaker. That's awesome. They have really good music. That's great. But are they really speaking from their heart and from, for God, or are there other things? So that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like communication, and for whoever, they should be really good at it. Otherwise, you're not going to hold your audience, and, you may lose a lot of people that are trying to figure out their faith. And then here comes along these other people that are really good at that. They're very charismatic, and they're leading them to, who knows what.
No, y tienes razón, because I don't know if you guys have watched the show Young Sheldon, and I really enjoyed the show. And in ese programa, the mom is really religious. I think she's Christian. I don't remember what religion, but they would go to church, and the pastor at the time, Sheldon, couldn't connect, or any of her kids really couldn't connect. But then they had, I think, Bible camp. So tocó Bible camp, and then they had a younger, like priest, pastor, right? Se llama, creo. And he was able to connect, and the mom was surprised and jealous at the same time, because she couldn't get them to be concentrated or focused in Bible camp. Y él sí, pero porque él supo ganárselos, and he knew, okay, you know what? He learned every single one, like how Sheldon was, how his sister was, what they liked, what they were interested in, what was going on at home. He went that far to do that. And then he was able to be like, okay, so then my session for today, or what I'm going to teach you today, is going to apply to that. Y eso es lo que me gustó. And I'm like, I know it's just a show, but it would be nice. And I hope that that's how everyone else is doing it. If there's, Bible camps and things like that for kids or the younger generation.
That's what hooked me into my faith. I went, like I said, I had to go to classes in order to do my confirmation, and there was this young guy leading those classes. His name is Manny, and he was at the time, I want to say 25, 26, young guy. Luckily, he was within like my faith and my religion, right? So it kind of really invested me in my religion, and he was just a great speaker. Hey man, like how are things? Like, what college do you go to? Do you play soccer? Oh, let's set up a soccer through the week. At this point, it was summer. Let's all like get the guys, and we can all play soccer here at church in the back. I'm like, absolutely, you got me on soccer. Like, absolutely, I'm definitely gonna show up. Like, why would I? Yeah. So I think like you just touched up on like what I said for sure. If you're very charismatic and you're very appealing and empathize with your audience, you're gonna hold them.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And hopefully teachers do that too.
Yeah.
Which with having faith, I think it's just it's something that you don't see. You really can't explain it You just have to have it. You have it, you feel it, and when you feel it, you start seeing it in your life. At least that's what I've experienced. Now, I'm not really into having a specific religion. I just read the Bible and I believe in God and leave your life in His hands. But I want to share with you, and Nelson, you probably know the story of Hope. The story of Hope, where and my sister probably doesn't know it, but and I'm gonna paraphrase it. I'm pretty sure it's a long story, but he's a guy that had a lot of things. He had animals, he had family, he had a lot of riches, and he was a believer of God, right? Nelson, whenever you feel like I'm saying something wrong, you can put in.
No, you're good.
He had a lot of things, and he was a believer of God. And people would tell him, "Hey, why are you a believer of God?" Blah blah. And he would say, "No, es el todopoderoso, él lo puede. I'm a believer." Le empezaron a pasar cosas, le empezaron a pasar malas cosas, hasta que llegó el punto que su misma esposa le decía: "Oye, ¿cómo es que eres creyente de Dios? Si te enfermaste, te pasó esto, tus animales se te van, o whatever." Los del pueblo le decían: "¿Cómo es que sigues creyendo en Dios? ¿Dónde está tu Dios para ayudarte?" ¿No? Entonces decía: "No, él es el todopoderoso." Él seguía creyendo a pesar de que no tenía nada. Hasta que llegó el punto, I want to say, que llegó el punto donde le quitaron todo. Yo no tenía nada. And he fed up with it. And he was to the point where le reclamó a Dios y le dijo: ¿Por qué me enfermé? ¿Por qué me quitaste todo? Yo no tengo la culpa. Yo soy inocente. ¿Por qué me lo quitas? Yo no he hecho nada. No eres justo, le decía a Dios. Tú no eres justo. Tú eres un Dios injusto. Entonces, en esos tiempos todavía Dios bajaba, not as a physical person, pero bajaba, le decía, entonces bajó y le dijo a Job: "A ver, Job, ven para acá." Somewhere along the lines le decía: "Ven para acá. A ver, tú dices que soy injusto. ¿Acaso tú estuviste cuando yo hice la tierra? ¿Acaso tú estuviste cuando yo inventé el sol? ¿Tú estuviste cuando yo le dije al sol que saliera? Cuando yo hice al humano, cuando yo hice la tierra, cuando hice todas estas cosas y lo fue llevando, le dijo: "Tú estuviste esto y esto y esto y esto." O sea, y le explicó bien. O sea, tú piensas que yo no sé cada detalle que pasa en la vida de mis creaciones, ¿no? Yo sé cada detalle, cada punto y por qué pasa cada cierta cosa. Y Job se quedaba así rascando la cabeza, ¿no? Y le decía: "Tienes razón. O sea, yo sé que tú eres el Todopoderoso. Discúlpame por pensar que no eras así, que no eras justo." Entonces Dios le dice: "Está bien, no hay problema." Se regresa Job, sigue con su vida. Dios vio que Job era todavía creyente a pesar de que le habían pasado tantas cosas, que le habían quitado todos sus animales, todas sus riquezas. Dios le regaló otra vez todas sus riquezas, sus animales, 14,000 vacas, bueyes, tu familia, 7 hijos, whatever, se los regaló, ¿no? Entonces la enseñanza es de que aunque te manden una enfermedad, aunque te manden que te whatever, que sigas creyendo en Dios, porque al final de cuentas te lo mandó por algo, ¿right? Pero lo que pasa es que nos enfermamos o perdemos el carro, perdemos la casa. ¿Por qué me pasa a mí? No, no es justo. ¿Por qué aquello? Pero pasa por algo. Dios está allí y te está diciendo: "Vas a perder tu casa, compadre, pero maybe vas a tener otra casa más grande de la que tienes, ¿no? O vas a tener un carro mejor del que tienes." Entonces, al final de cuentas es tener fe, ¿no? Es lo que yo entendí de ese libro. I think it was a phenomenal book when it comes to really having faith, because it's not something that you see, it's something that you feel. And I think that's where más, como dijo my sister, se pierden uno en decir: "¿Cómo la puedo sentir si no la veo? ¿No? Si me va mal en esta clase, si no tengo el carro que quiero, no tengo la novia que quiero, Dios no está conmigo, like, I don't have these things. Pero once you get closer to faith, you're gonna have the things that, or you're gonna get closer to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Entonces,
Para mí fue la película, no sé si han visto God's Not Dead. Salió en el cine hace años. And
I
it kind of touches on that subject, God's Not Dead. Ajá. Y el, basically, se trataba de un college student. El muchacho, he didn't believe in religion. He wasn't, he didn't believe in God. And, no, he did believe in God. Yes, sorry. I'm mixing it up. He did believe in God, pero el profesor que le tocó did not. Tanto he didn't, que les hizo the first day of class, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the first day of class les dijo, all right, everyone's gonna get an A in my class. All you have to do is write on a piece of paper, God's dead. All you have to do, and you get an A. Y él dijo, I'm not gonna write that. I'm not gonna write that. Y dijo, no, and he refused. And at one point, you would probably be like, why couldn't he just write it? Even if he didn't believe it, why couldn't he just write it? Pero no, él pasó toda la película like, you know what, I'm gonna prove it. Hasta hubo un punto que hasta it broke his relationship with his girlfriend porque she was like, how are you gonna throw your whole career away just because you didn't want to write that? And I really enjoyed watching that movie porque he was so into his faith. He kept his faith, and he was like, you know what, I'm gonna get an A, and I'm not gonna write that what he wants me to. And he did that. He was able to prove it, because I think that's what the professor told him. All right, since you're not gonna write that God's dead on a piece of paper, now there has to be a debate between you and I.
Mm-hmm.
And your classmates are gonna decide who wins the debate. And he basically had to do that so throughout the whole semester.
Which going to that, yeah, go ahead, Tati, finish.
No, I was just gonna say, you'd have to, for those who haven't watched it, it's a really good movie. Even if you're not, for those who aren't even religious or you don't have faith or whatever, I think that's a good movie for anyone to watch. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Which this goes to my second question, because I think that in everything they have gotten us far away from God. Like they don't try to include him in really in anything.
Talk about the industry, the entertainment industry, or
everywhere.
No.
Everywhere.
We can talk about anything else, everything, as explicit or vulgar as you want it to be. But the moment
you can't talk about him.
Oh no. Don't we don't talk about that. It's like, yep, I feel you on that. I hate that.
Yeah. So, we've been talking for almost 2 hours here. And it's been a phenomenal conversation. Nessa, you've been one of our best guests so far.
Oh, thank you.
I have to finish off, to complete it for the 2 hours. So you're all right with it?
Yes.
I have a couple of subjects here, and
Yeah.
between you and my sister, I'm gonna let you guys choose. We have here dating culture, social media, Star Wars, the MCU, and George Soros. So whichever one you guys feel like talking to, you guys choose it, and we'll finish the podcast off with one of those subjects.
I could talk on any of those, but I'm a big MCU fan. Big MCU fan. I could talk for it, so I'll pick that one.
Okay, Nelson has MCU. Tati?
What's MCU? Is that
Marvel?
Okay, that's fine. I know that.
Okay, so we're going with Marvel.
Right? Pero, let's talk about dating culture.
Ooh.
I think that'd be interesting.
Okay, so we'll start with dating culture. We'll finish off with Marvel, and we'll call it a wrap. Is that all right?
Sounds good.
We might go
okay,
over
Tati,
2 hours, but yeah.
Tati,
so. since you chose dating culture, what's going on with our dating culture? What do you think is going on?
Well, no, I wanted to pick that one mostly because I haven't been in the dating world. I haven't been exposed to it present tense. So I know, Beto, you could probably talk about, your point of view from being, in the single and in that dating world. and then Nelson, give your point of view on like how it was for you. But me, I mostly want to touch base on like dating today, how different it was to when we were teenagers,
Oof.
and I think mostly that. And what advice would you give, you know, people in this dating world? You know,
Nelson, go ahead. You're our guest.
Man, so if I look back at like whenever I was a teenager and stuff, again, I was super shy, so I was like foreign to all that. And at the same time, that's whenever social media started really kind of coming up, like Snapchat and Instagram, all that stuff started coming out whenever I was like in high school. Um, but so I guess the main way that at least that I remember dating back then, like, 'cause I was young at the time, I was just like, hey, saw a girl in your class that was cute, whatever. You try to talk to them, boom, relationship would go from that if it was in your favor. Um, but then now it's like I feel like everyone just meets people through different dating apps and all that,
Humble.
and you're able to just say almost anything you want or portray yourself in a certain way because there's not really a face to face until that first date, right? So I feel also for a lot of people because of COVID, a lot of people went through that for what 2 years. You couldn't really be face to face, or it would be through a mask. So you're hiding literally half your face. I feel like that's already affecting your communication and the way you empathize with, like, react to emotions. So I always told myself too, for all the little kids, like 5 to 6 year olds that like just see other people through masks for 2 years, I was like, how is that going to affect them in the future? But for me, it was just once I got older and actually started going into dating and all that, it's the main thing was just dating apps. They're everywhere, and then they're promoted and every other advertisement on YouTube, on Instagram, like it's all there. Which is a shame because I'm old fashioned. I feel like you should just meet people in real life, through
it's organic, right?
organic. Yeah, you right off the bat you meet someone face to face, not through a screen. You get to see who they really are at that moment, as opposed to where like you could talk weeks on the phone and stuff like that, but you really don't know what their true intentions are or who they really are until you finally see them in person. So yeah, it's pretty wild nowadays because what they call it now is just hookup culture. It's not really dating culture. I feel like it's hookup culture. And it's very unfortunate because you're kind of just there's no real purpose to it except just get as much out of it than actually investing in someone for like the long term. At least that's the way I feel it is nowadays. Luis?
Beto?
You've hit it. I think that I mean, I remember when I was I got out of high school and the dating culture was still the point where you would like to talk on the phone, which now nobody likes talking on the phone. You know, now it's just like, why are you calling me when you could text me? And it's like, but it's not the same thing. Like I don't know your voice. I don't know how you're really saying it to me. I want to hear your voice so I can interpret really how you're saying it to me.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, don't call me. So I remember we would talk for 2, 3 hours, and that's when you really get to know the person. That's when you would be like, okay, this person is really someone that I want to get to know. And now it's like, I mean, I don't have these dating apps. I had them at one point, probably around the pandemic, but now it's like when I saw that what was in there, I was like, no, I gotta get away from that because it's very superficial now more than anything. It's more like you get a match depending on how you look. You don't get a match. I mean, there's some that could probably say, hey, this person really likes to go skydiving. This person likes this type of whiskey. This person likes to go eat salads. There's somebody that's reading that, but it's really seeing, okay, where's he at? Is he in Paris? Is he in Germany? Is he his back? Is he behind his Audi? Like
Mm-hmm.
they're looking at all the superficial stuff, and then when you match with them, it's like, so are we gonna go out to eat? Are we gonna go out to eat to this bar in downtown? Are we gonna go? Are you gonna pick me up in your car? Uh, so it's all of that. It's all like, where do you work? How much do you make? And it's like, whoa, what's your name? Do we have chemistry? But they're not looking for that, you know. And these apps, they're looking for all these other things that really, and then they go, and then those are the people that go and say, love doesn't exist, love stinks. And I'm like, why do you think it stinks? What are you looking for? You're looking for somebody that drives an Audi, makes 100,000 a year, and you think that he's gonna love you just because you look pretty? No, there has to be chemistry there. Like, what are we looking for? So it's like this dating culture, at least for me, you know, I still like to think that, you know, if I'm gonna talk to somebody, I'm gonna spend an hour, 2 hours talking with them on the phone. ¿Qué te gusta? ¿Qué no te gusta? ¿Qué te hace enojar? ¿Qué no te hace enojar? ¿Te gusta la vida afuera del city? ¿Te ves con hijos? ¿No te ves con hijos? And a conversation where you really get to know someone. And notice how I didn't say, ¿en qué trabajas? ¿Cuánto ganas? ¿Qué carro manejas? ¿Dónde vives? O sea, eso no me dice nada. You know, I think our dating culture, pues, compared to society, they have done it like that. You know, ¿qué tienes? ¿Me convienes?
Yeah, because I think it's probably the way I'm interpreting it is that the question is still what do you bring to the table, but it's no longer like what do you bring emotionally, mentally, you know, how can you make me better? And instead it's what can you bring to the table as far as money or material things is what I'm taking it as. And it's very unfortunate because I'm sure there's a lot of, you know, good people out there, women and men, that they can't find their match because there's that superficial side where it's what you see. And that's where I started watching, and I know it's reality TV, but it kind of makes you like reflect and then see what empathize with people and what they're going through. So I watched Love is Blind, where the experiment. The first one was really raw, and I love that. After that, maybe they're going in there for the attention or the
Clout.
money or who knows. Yeah, the clout. But the first season, I really enjoyed it because they're building a connection and they don't even know what the person looks like, and they're having deep conversations. And that I feel like that's what needs to happen. Or the only way you're gonna be able to meet someone or connect with someone is through someone introducing you to them, or like if you just so happen to, you know, come across them at the grocery store, no sé, and you guys go to like an event. But other than that, I don't know how else there would be a way for you to connect. I think la gente tiene que salir, go to networking events, no sé.
Yeah. It's like, are you gonna fish in a lake where there's real fish, or are you gonna fish in a pool? You're not gonna. What are you gonna? You're gonna pull artificial stuff out of pool, right? So it's like that metaphor. You know, if you're gonna look for stuff in dating apps, you know what the majority of the things people are looking for in those things, as opposed to if you go to the real world. I mean, your interactions will be completely different.
And I'm sure you guys feel it, like that pressure, especially being men. Like you feel like you have to be the first one to initiate that conversation, and the woman's like, "Oh, you're gonna lead me. You're gonna lead the entire conversation." So I'm sure that would probably make you feel like you have to give a certain impression versus it just flowing naturally, which can happen in person as opposed to on the phone. But
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, yeah, COVID impacted that. So no
Mm-hmm.
sé, Beto, what do you think? What advice would you give to those who are in your same boat? What do you think would be the next best move? No. Can you hear
But
him? No.
I can't hear
We
you.
can't hear you. No.
I
Nope.
think you may have to log off and log back in. I think that's what worked last time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Nope.
Nope.
Oh no. Am I next?
You're the only one left.
Oh no.
A ver.
Uh-huh.
I think this would be
Saved by
a
the
good.
mute,
Well, let's see if it works.
right? Hello. Can you hear
Are we
us?
good?
Yes, we're good.
Yes.
Okay. Where were we? Advice.
You had to answer my question.
Mira, yo creo que, bueno, le preguntas a una persona que es muy diferente a muchas personas.
Old fashioned.
No, I think that you have to be at peace with yourself in order for a lot of things to come at you.
Yeah.
Ya sea en el plano carrera, en el plano de querer a alguien, ya sea en tus sueños que quieras. You have to be at peace with yourself, love yourself, y después viene todo lo demás, ¿no? O sea, puedes usar todas esas apps, puedes conectar con gente, salir, platicar, tener conversaciones. Al final del día, la vida es de, tener conversaciones, aprender o entender el punto de vista de la otra persona without you really butting heads or really, no, es que eso es incorrecto, whatever, es simplemente ver, okay, you think like, why do you guys think like that? ¿No? Cuando tú vas conociendo a alguien, entonces ya abres la oportunidad de que maybe you can match. Maybe puede ser ese negative positive que necesitas para hacer una relación. Pero si ya vas con tus firmes ideas de que no, en mi vida esto es así, esto es así, esto es así, pues entonces no vas a agarrar nada. No vas a agarrar nada. Pero si dices,
Tell him.
si vas a decir, oye, why do you think this has to be this way? Oh, por eso y esto y esto. Ah, ok. Entonces, ya le vas tratando de inculcar a la otra persona, oh, okay, he said this way. Okay, I know why. Pero si se lo impones, how we try to do it now, where it's like, I've seen it, where it's like, if you're not vegan, don't talk to me. If you vote for Trump, don't talk to me. If you don't like reading, don't talk to me. And it's like, o sea, te estás cerrando.
Absolutely. I feel like people are so quick now to just if you're not aligned with what they believe in or their opinion, then you're immediately like, "Oh, you're a hater." A hater. That's like the thing now. Like it's not like, "Oh, I can see you don't agree? Okay, whatever." No, it's like you're a hater and then you get targeted and I hate that so much. And that goes like deeper into like so many topics. Yeah, you'll get canceled immediately. Like I'm pretty sure I got half the stuff I said, I probably get canceled for.
You're canceled tomorrow, bro.
Exactly, bro. It's fine, but that's just how it is now. We're so quick to like, if you're not exactly like me, then boom, why am I talking to you? It's like you should be appreciating differences so you learn stuff about the other person, and maybe you get to actually think deeper about what you actually even believe in or what your opinion is towards things. You get to learn and think deeper into like, oh, it's just because I don't like it. Come on, you actually have to know deeper than that. So I feel like communication, again, it comes to communication.
Yeah, exactly.
You just gotta like hear people out, understand where they're coming from, and then try to put, say your point of view, so then they can hopefully are receptive to it, and then the dialogue can go deeper into that, get to know each other better, get to know yourself even better too. So, yeah.
I agree.
Well, our final subject, what did we say? It was going to be the
MCU. Yes.
MCU.
And with that, will y'all give me 1 minute to use the restroom? I really have to.
Go ahead, because I also have to use it too.
All right, awesome. I'll be right back.
I'm going to entertain everybody.
Go ahead, Tati, you got it.
So what do you guys think? In the comments, go ahead and let us know. What's your dilemma? Where are you now in the dating world? Did you get to experience that after COVID? What's your take on it? Did you experience it and then now you're in a relationship? What worked for you that maybe could work for someone else? Just share with us in the comments. Let us know. Luckily, I didn't have to deal with that, but I do empathize with it. And I don't know how you guys are doing it. So props to everyone who's had to deal with that after COVID, during COVID, after COVID, and now to this day. I feel like I should be playing elevator music. But I probably can't play music, you know, because copyright. But all these topics, we could go on and just do a complete series of just one topic, especially the dating culture. I think someone's blasting music outside. It is Friday. All right, and we have one back. Ooh.
Whew,
Welcome
those
back.
coronas.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Now I was just asking the audience if they could just drop in the comments, let us know if what they went through, if they're going through it now, and if they did go through it during COVID or after COVID, what pushed them through, you know, what helped them, and maybe it can, you know, their advice can help someone else that's going through it now.
Yeah.
Hopefully. And I sang a little bit of elevator music, if you could even call it that.
Okay,
All right, so next topic.
we're back. We're in the MCU. MCU, it's I'm going to say it covers what? Doctor Strange, Captain Marvel,
It's the Avengers.
Iron Man.
too, right?
It's the Avengers, right? Pretty much all the Avengers. Okay, the multiverse, right? Is Deadpool also a part of it?
Yes, so Marvel acquired 20th Century Fox a few years ago. So it was huge for the fans because it's like, yes, we're finally gonna have the X-Men. The X-Men are finally gonna pop up. And they little hinted at it. I don't know if y'all watched Wanda and Vision on Disney Plus. But the actor who
Not yet.
portrayed Quicksilver Quicksilver in the X-Men movies, the newer X-Men movies, he showed up in it. And in the comics, Quicksilver is a twin brother of Wanda Maximoff, which is played by, I think her name is Elizabeth Olsen. So he made an appearance, and I have a video reaction to it on my YouTube channel, actually, because every episode, after the credits, they would have a little cutscene. And me and my brother watched it, and the way they released this, I think they released the first 2 episodes back to back, but then it's like every week they would release one episode, so you had to wait for the one. So me, my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister will all be in the living room because this one MCU hype was like super huge. Infinity War Endgame just ended. This is a show that just dropped on Disney Plus. We're all hooked. So then we saw stuff people like putting on social media like, oh, rumors are he's gonna pop up, this and that. I'm like, nah, there's no way. Like, that'd be crazy. And then sure enough, he showed up in one of the episodes at the very end, and me and my brother flipped out. We're like, they're doing it! They're finally doing it! The X-Men! This is what everyone has wanted. And then it was just a little teaser because it had nothing to do with the X-Men. It was just the same actor playing that character, so it kind of like got our hype and attention. But it's like they're planting their seeds. But yeah, they're Deadpool. Because I know they're having a movie coming out soon in the summer. I think it's Wolverine and Deadpool, or Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm pretty sure it's going to finally merge the MCU with the 20th Century Fox X-Men because now they're owned by Marvel. So it's exciting things. It's exciting stuff for nerds like me. I can't wait.
Now,
Yeah.
I'll ask you guys because I mean, I follow the story. I'm not that into it. I know my favorite is Doctor Strange.
Okay.
I just feel a certain chemistry there. I know we took. I don't know if that you were you still here. I think you were still here. We took our mom to go see Endgame, both Avenger movies,
Amazing.
and she saw obviously where Robert Downey Jr. really he died. But I think her favorite character, she said it was Spider-Man. It's a
Makes
kid
sense.
and everything. So who's your favorite character, Nelson? Who's your favorite character, Tati?
Tati, you go first.
Yeah, okay. Well, mine is easy just because of his personality, and I've watched his movies. Iron Man. I don't know. I love his humor, his sense of humor. Yeah, and I guess because I've seen interviews of him like as an actor, so that also like I guess plays a part in me liking the way he acts and then his role in that. And I really like Iron Man, the superhero, just how he is because he's. It's like seeing him and he's like a normal human being. You know, he doesn't have any special superpowers, but he has his brains and everything that he develops, all the technology, and he's just like a maybe not people person, but in his own way.
No.
But I love his attitude, and I think that sense of humor, I feel like I can vibe with that. So that's
Yeah.
why.
Interesting they say Iron Man because I would pick the opposite. If you watch Civil War, I would pick
Captain America.
Captain America all the way. Just because he's such a virtuous character, or at least he tries to. And it's funny because in a couple of the movies, Iron Man and Captain America bump heads. But I love Robert Downey Jr. as an actor. He's phenomenal. I think even Stan Lee said he was the perfect person to play Tony Stark and Iron Man. Like, he is the perfect actor to have played him. I don't think anybody on this earth could have played that part better than the way he did. But I love Captain America just because although he did get powers right through experimentation and all that, and later got his powers, but that's not what makes him Captain America. What makes him Captain America is his sense of justice, the way he, is always trying to do the right thing. And in the movie Civil War, Iron Man and Captain America really bumped heads because they had something called the Sokovia Accords, where they went out to do a mission in this fictional country called Sokovia. But in the process of trying to put down evil, because I think they were trying to steal some kind of like secret chemical or stuff, these bad guys, and in the process they kind of really did a number on the city, destroyed a couple buildings and all that. Obviously, it's not that they wanted to, but it's just by, confronting this, villain. Obviously, they have to use their powers to like try to like, take care of the situation. And unfortunately, in the process, a couple of people passed away or died. And the government wanted them to sign these accords, which means you are not allowed to take care of any international or any kind of worldly danger unless us, the government, commission you and give you permission to do so. And being controlled by the government, you just never know what their intentions are, right? With Captain America, it's like, if we don't even get to say, like, let's say there's this huge danger out there in the world, we're not allowed to go out there and just do the right thing unless the government tells us to. And that's what the theme of the movie is for Civil War. Tony, someone confronted him at the very beginning of the movie, this lady, and said, my son was a college student and he was out there doing philanthropy work and charity work. And because of what happened in Sokovia, he died, and she blames Tony Stark for it. So that gets in his conscience. And because of that, he signs these Sokovia Awards, and and that's really what splits up the Avengers. And Captain America, Steve Rogers, says, like, Tony, if we sign this, we don't have a say at all. Only the government does. And because of that, he didn't want to sign it. And because of that, it's just like, I believe I'm with him. I would be the same way. If someone is in peril and in danger, I would, out of my heart, I would want to go do something about it because I have the power to do it. I know I can stop it. But if I sign that, if the government says no, it's not worth it, you're not allowed to. And because of that, Captain America is just my favorite character. He's amazing. I love his sense of virtue.
Yeah, I mean, the MCU, just like Star Wars, these are all movies that that makes us think, like, what if we were these superhumans, with all these powers, all these decisions, and it makes us escape for a minute, watching these people, and it's like it's I find it amazing. I find it amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great movies. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like they've gone downhill though ever since Endgame, which really sucks. There's been a couple of blunders, movies that have completely flopped. So that's
the really most recent one. The most recent one. The one with the three girls.
The Marvels. Yeah, Marvels.
The Marvels. Madam Web is also part of that, no?
Adam Webb, that's Sony. It is Marvel, but it's not part of the MCU. So, oh my god,
Okay.
bro! I could talk. Maybe we could touch that on another day, but I could literally
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
about that
yeah.
for another hour about the Sony, what they're doing, which is just very dumb. But yeah, I feel like and maybe it's just movies in general too have just gone downhill.
Yeah.
The quality, I feel like they're more trying to do an agenda, in my opinion, than really trying to put out content, for good content. And that's not always the case. There are some good movies that have come out, but I feel like that's not the main thing when going into a movie. It's like, can we make money off of it? And like, are we the way I think is, I feel like, are we targeting a certain audience before we really release it? It's like, as long as you tell a good story and the characters are great and relatable, then that's all you need to make a great movie, in my opinion.
No,
I agree.
I'm sure a lot of
I
people can
agree.
relate to that.
Yeah, I mean,
Even the trailer.
I think MCU really took it off so much that DC has fallen back, which are the classical heroes, you know, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you know, like you said, this is that story can go on for hours. Another episode.
Yeah.
Nelson, it's been 2 hours. It doesn't even feel like it's been 2 hours. It has gone by really fast. Cada quien con su bebida. My sister has enjoyed it. We've enjoyed it. I'm pretty sure whoever has watched it has enjoyed it.
It's been so much fun.
So we want to thank you for being on with us. Yeah. And I know I can say it. You've been the best guest so far, and we appreciate you for being on. And thank you. And with this, we'll close it. And Nelson, if you want to say your buys and Tati as well.
Yeah, no, thank y'all so much for having me. It's literally like how you said, like, I can't believe it's been a little bit over 2 hours. To me, it was like 30 minutes. No, I think what you guys have going here in this podcast is amazing. Keep at it. Keep learning as much as you can. You guys are great. The way y'all flowed the conversations, excellent. I'm going to be tuning in for sure on y'all's episodes. So thank y'all so much for having me, for the compliments. It's been a lot of fun, and I can't wait to do this again, you know, if I fit into y'all's schedule at any point. But you guys are doing great, and I really appreciate it.
I appreciate your kind words. Thank you, Nelson, for joining us tonight. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And of course, leave your comments, and I hope that it resonated with a lot of you. And I'm sure it resonated with even people from older generations, newer generations. But let us know in the comments if there's any other, thing that you want us to talk about, anything that we discussed today in this, in this podcast that maybe we wanted to go deeper. Let us know, and then we'll have another session and we'll bring Nelson back.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Nelson, Tati, goodbye.
Thank you so much.
Have a good